Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, sitting down again to talk about Baldur's Gate 3, which is seeing an absolutely enormous success right now. And it's not just any success in the industry, alright? Because we've seen games reach incredible numbers on player counts, sales, but Larian Studios is different. This is a team of gameplay-driven, choice-driven, hardcore RPG fans making their dream games like Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 and Baldur's Gate 3 and seeing a level of success that I think was unfathomable for not only them but many people around the industry. Don't get me wrong, Baldur's Gate 3 was one of my most anticipated games of the year, but to see the success it's had on a player count level is incredible. The critical reception, the fan reception, you could already take it to the bank that this was going to be an amazing game, but to see it reach the levels of success it has warms my heart. And I want to talk about not only that, but also just celebrate Larian as a studio in general. I got a couple of quotes here that I think y'all are going to find very interesting, especially in the world of Xbox, and just some things that they're doing that other teams aren't. And this is something that should be celebrated even if the game is not your cup of tea. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, you're into the occasional Baldur's Gate 3 video, you're in the right place. We love talking about RPGs here. I'm still working on my review. Just a little heads up, I recognize that when I was playing this game 1440p ultra settings, my PC was running extremely hot. I'm just curious if anyone out there is having the same issue. I tested a number of other games afterwards, no problems, but my computer was legitimately hot to the touch from that. So is it me? Is it the game? Let me know. Just wanted to spread some awareness on that because I've never seen it before. But let's start off with the reviews. Right now, Baldur's Gate 3 is sitting at a 95 score on Metacritic. Not much to run away with there. It's 8 critic reviews, so we don't want to go too crazy with it, but I'm glad to see critics are holding back their final verdict until they finish the game. It's something I mentioned in my impressions that no one should be putting their final verdict on this game. You know, Sunday was when codes hit. The embargo lifted Thursday. This game is ginormous. Probably not something you want to rush just for the sake of having your verdict out there. With that, we have user scores sitting at 9.3 across over 1,000 ratings. And then the Steam ratings themselves are fantastic. So this game has been widely well received, which has never been my concern. I just wanted to see, with all the investment Larian was putting into this game, especially on the presentation level, which we've never seen them do, I was really hoping that people would take note. And boy, have they. This is just the success on PC. This game has yet to come out on PlayStation 5, where no doubt it's going to be another big boom for them. But you look right now at the Steam player charts. I just grabbed these screenshots today. As of 30 minutes ago, almost 600,000 people are still playing Baldur's Gate 3 with an all-time peak of 814,466 players. Okay, this tells me 3 things. Number 1, hype is real, y'all. When you start seeing games gaining momentum, there's not much slowing it down. Whether it ends up being a train wreck, disappointment, exciting, these numbers explode the second a game catches fire ahead of launch. In Baldur's Gate 3, while it came in pretty late, caught fire ahead of launch. I remember my recommended was full of Baldur's Gate 3 videos. I remember my Twitter timeline full of Baldur's Gate 3. A lot of conversation, a lot of interactions, a lot of impressions, a lot of views, a lot of people making Baldur's Gate 3 content. It was doing well, and that was gaining a lot of attention for the game. That's not just it, though. It's not just the hype, but it's also that number 2. I love that an unapologetically hardcore, I'm going to kick the hell out of you type RPG is doing these types of numbers. What we've seen over the years is a lot of game developers compromise their vision of a more hardcore game in the name of accessibility. And no, I'm not talking Dark Souls difficulty type accessibility. I'm talking ease of getting someone through the door by saying, hey, look at this shiny action game, right? I think of BioWare, and I think what this says to me with Baldur's Gate 3 and Larian is that people want this type of game. It's not just a, oh, look, that happened. People aren't looking for you to water down the typically hardcore role-playing game experiences that these teams are known for, such as BioWare. And that Larian Studios, who's the creator of Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, did not compromise their integrity as a hardcore RPG creative as they started to gain traction through early access and just made the game they wanted to make is what makes them special. It's why, since 2014, when I just stumbled upon Divinity Original Sin, I remember finding it on Steam, the reviews were good, I was in the mood for a fantasy game, I saw that a lot of people were enjoying it, and I went, all right, let's give it a shot. one of the best games I ever played. Divinity Original Sin 2, one of the most incredible games I have played because of the tag system, the choices, the amount of replayability there. As time has gone on, not crazy about Fort Joy, but Baldur's Gate 3 just takes any singular lesson from Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 that they have learned and implements it into Baldur's Gate 3, and then ups the production value. So things like cutscenes, conversations, much more intimate, higher production value, but without sacrificing the choice-driven nature that brought their fans there in the first place. It's almost unfathomable, the level of success that they have reached, and truly it warms my heart. I've had the privilege of being able to talk to some of the folks at Larian as I've covered their games over the year, and look, yeah, there's a lot of hardcore gamers who love their job, who love the games they work on across the entire industry. Larian is not alone in that, but Larian is full of people who are very passionate about the types of games they make, passionate about tabletop RPGs, passionate about Baldur's Gate 3, which they were originally rejected for in their first pitch, passionate about choice and consequence, passionate about writing, and you see how it's paid off. They stuck to their guns for 3 games. Not that Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 were overlooked by any stretch of the imagination. They're successful games unto themselves, but this is the type of win you want to see, because we all win. Again, even if Baldur's Gate 3 is not your cup of tea, we as an industry win when a game like this does numbers like this, because it tells other developers out there we don't have to water down our otherwise more hardcore experience to make something that's going to sell. Almost 1 million people at once were playing easily the most hardcore RPG of this year, possibly of the last decade. Look what they're pulling in, and by that I mean a player count, I mean money, I mean this is one SKU. They haven't even seen the PlayStation 5 numbers, where I imagine pre-orders are skyrocketing. And what was Larian's expectations? Well, Sven Vink, who is the studio head at Larian, said I should probably stay away from the IT team for a while, told them to expect like 100K or so at max for Baldur's Gate 3, which would have been still incredibly high for Larian. Like, I don't want to lose that in the thick of things here. Internally, they were expecting 100K, maybe. Imagine getting over 8 times that. That's insane, dude. Like, I am so happy for them, because they have done a kick-ass job with this game. Easily one of my favorite games of the year. I could see this becoming my game of the year, no doubt about it. Just, I've been such a fan of Larian for a while, and this feels like their best work yet. I said that this reminds me of a couple of things, and I mentioned hype, I mentioned Larian not compromising their vision, and I gotta talk a little bit about BioWare here. This shows to me one thing I know a lot of people aren't talking about, and it's probably because I'm a BioWare diehard, so I get why people's heads wouldn't typically go here. It shows to me there's a hunger and a thirst for the BioWare style RPG. This is a Larian game through and through, but make no mistake, the BioWare inspirations are clearly there in how the characters are designed and how they're introduced and how the interaction's done. Don't get me wrong, these are some old school RPG fans here who've been around the industry for a while. I'm not trying to take away from them and saying they're copying a page out of the playbook of BioWare, but what I'm saying is this game evokes a lot of BioWare energy. And when you look at the success of Mass Effect Legendary Edition, a game series that I think, at least you could say for 1 and 2, did not compromise its vision of being a fun RPG with lots of choices in exchange for accessibility, and you look at what's happening here with Baldur's Gate 3, you see the success of this style of game. People want this. And so I worry a little bit for games like Dragon Age Dreadwolf, which we have leaks that show a much more action-focused combat system. Now, as I've said before, where I was already concerned about that combat system, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. But what this proves to me is that you don't need to be an action game to sell lots of copies. So hopefully this means we get more turn-based games, more isometric games from big developers with lots of money that don't need to do what Larian did, by the way. Don't forget, this was in early access for a while, and so they needed early fan support. They've done Kickstarter before. They've scratched and clawed their way to this point, so they absolutely deserve it. And I wanted to shine a bit of a light on the type of team they are here in this article from Push Square. Baldur's Gate 3 team Larian Studios isn't interested in being bought by the likes of Microsoft or Sony, as Chief Executive Officer Sven Vink feels the developer still has so much more to give. In a new interview with Bloomberg, Vink says that while it's always flattering to be considered for acquisition, he enjoys making the ultimate decisions and certainly is not done yet. The full quote says, "I'm getting older, but I'm certainly not done yet. The strength of this company is that I'm very invested in the gameplay, and I also make the ultimate decisions. We can do things in service of the games, we're making. What this means is Larian is currently enjoying an era of success that we should all be relishing in right now, because they're head of the team, which if you watch any of the pre-launch stuff for Baldur's Gate 3, which I always kept an eye on, and if you paid attention to Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, you already knew what kind of dude Sven was. Like, this dude was that guy that you wanted to have at the top of the mountain like we're seeing here, because he cares about the games that he works on. And again, I'm not saying this to bash other devs. I know many others do, but this is a dude who's not making choices by the numbers, by the pre-orders. It's what's best for the game. He's always been like that. And even here where they learned about, hey, Microsoft wanted to buy you, he's like, cool, but they wouldn't let me make the best type of game I want to make. And I respect the heck out of that. Now, continuing on, speaking of Xbox, what's interesting here is that Xbox isn't going to be getting this game until 2024. Now, I've seen a lot of like PlayStation fans, like a particular subsect of the PlayStation fandom, claim this game is like their exclusive, which I've always found strange, because Larian's made it very clear like there's no exclusivity deal. And here's what they said recently about that. Hello, friend. We've said many times in the past that the issue is getting split screen working on the Series S, which is taking more time but is in progress. This is a huge technical hurdle, but we are unable to release the game on the ecosystem without this feature. Far from being exclusive, we have no exclusivity deal that prevents us from launching on Xbox. The issue is a technical hurdle. We cannot remove the split screen feature because we are obliged to launch with feature parity, and so continue to try and make it work. We have a few engineers working very hard to do what no other RPG of this scale has achieved, which is drop in, drop out co-op seamlessly on Series S. We hope to have an update by the end of the year, meaning this is probably coming out in 2024, which definitely is a sucky long wait. Xbox fans have Starfield, so I think they'll be okay, and that the timing may be great for them, but I digress. It still is a bummer that Xbox fans can't get on this one, say, next month if they're not interested in Starfield. And what I want to call out here is I like that they're trying to focus on feature parity. I think the easy answer here is just release on Series X, do Series S later. And it's become a talking point now on how the Series S is underpowered. And I personally don't engage in those conversations, not to protect Series S, not to protect Xbox, but strictly because I think half the people talking about this shit just don't know. They have no clue what they're talking about. They think it just is like fitting something into a box and that's it. Every game's built different. Every game has its own technical challenges. And I respect that Larian wants to deliver the complete experience without compromising, without microtransactions, without premium crap, and just do what most developers should be doing. And you know what? If they're not going to compromise that, who are we to argue? I think it's great. So what we're seeing here is a team that's stuck to their guns, has thought of the player first, and is getting aptly rewarded for it. And again, that player count is just incredible. It gets me so excited for what they can do next. Because for me, in a lot of ways, I'm like, Baldur's Gate 3 is like the top of the mountain. So what do they do next? And given that Sven's there, given the team that's there, the passion that's there, I'm not worried at all that all of a sudden Larian's going to be compromised and now they're going to go out and make a bunch of action games or something like that. They're playing with house money, and I think they're just going to double down and reinvest in these hardcore RPGs, because guess what brought them there? Hardcore RPGs. So I'm really excited about what's to come for them. Baldur's Gate 3 has been absolutely phenomenal. Even in co-op, I recently started up a co-op playthrough. I did a little testing and invited a friend in who I was already level 4 in this playthrough. And when he hopped in, it actually let him create his own character, which then let him just join my session mid-playthrough, and it leveled them up automatically, which was great. So if anyone's like mid-playthrough and just wants to get a friend involved, maybe they're around the same distance as you in the story, you can do that stuff. So again, the game just feels like it's thought of everything, and that's the benefit of a good early access program like what Larian did. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I leave this all with you. What do you think about what's going on with Baldur's Gate 3? Have you been enjoying the game? What do you make of Larian's success? Have you played Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2? If not, get on those games. They're phenomenal. If you like Baldur's Gate, it doesn't have the production value of those games, but it certainly has the interaction, the choice-based, the role-playing of those games. It's phenomenal stuff. So be sure to check those out. But with that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will catch you in the next video. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the heck out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.